schoolhouse reading Anno's China. Anno's China by Mitsumasa Anno. Scene 1. It seems to me foggy scenery in the morning universally creates an air of fantasy. River water has risen, and trees look as if they are growing from the bottom of the river, which is wide enough to be called a lake. That reminds me of a huge lake, the Dongting Lake in Hunan Province. It is larger than one of the big islands in Japan, the Awaji Island. Fishing using cormorants is quite popular in China. They don't tie a rope around the bird's throat as we do in Japan. Scene 2. Ducks are herded to exercise on the river. I often came across such a scene in China. They kept ducks in order to make century eggs, which are called Pidan in China. As for Pidan, I once saw a Pidan maker in a bustle of a downtown. People bring duck eggs there to have them dipped in a lime solution and covered with rice husk. Several days' preservation makes them into Pidan. A boat needs no effort to go downstream. On the other hand, when going upstream, it is sometimes more efficient to pull a boat from a bank. The current of this river is not rapid, so that the boat looks as if it is on a lake. In China, some rivers are unbelievably long. For example, the Yellow River and the Qingyang are still longer than the distance from the north to the south of Japan. In such long rivers, riverbeds gradually become shallow as mud and sand is carried downstream. Dredging is gone, only surpassed by nature. It is necessary to build an embankment to avoid flooding. And as riverbeds rise, embankments must rise higher. As a result, the river begins to rise higher than land. Scene 3. Gradually, land comes in sight on both sides of the river. I painted this scene, remembering the time when I used to go sketching in China. I could see the yard of a farmhouse across the canal. An entire family was busy drying rice in the husk or carrying hay. A woman of the family noticed me and gestured. "Come here and join us for lunch." But there was no bridge, and I couldn't cross the canal. Although she should have known it, she was insisting. Then a young man came nearer, panting and saying, "Out of the way! Out of the way!" I learned I was sitting on a pathway used to pull a boat. The boat was large enough, but on the water, it could be pulled easily with a truckful load. Scene 4. This is a dock. They are repairing a wooden ship of the old type. I don't know what's wrong with it. You will see a boat to load and warehouses to store goods. This place is also a point of contact of south by the boat, north by horse. Here they load a boat from a horse. Scene 5. The scene at the upper right is the site of Kikiao near Shaoxing that I still remember with fondness. The labyrinth downtown bustled with all kinds of shops and lots of shoppers. With no cars but many bridges, the structure of the town was exactly like that of Venice. When I visited there after 30 years, the town had changed much. A big furniture store or a grand building that appeared to be an assembly hall had been built. At the lower right, you will see a brewery of Shaoxing wine. The actual brewery was far larger than this, and a lot of large jars were stacked in the storehouses. According to a worker there, when a daughter is born, her family buys a jar of Shaoxing wine. And when she gets married, they drink from it in celebration. Scene 6. The open space at the upper right is an outdoor market. Hanging from the tree in the middle are kites. Next to it, a calligrapher is writing Chinese letters to sell. In China, we often see pieces of red paper with Chinese letters written. And they're written at the entrances of homes or buildings. These letters are auspicious ones to invite good luck, written by the kinds of professional calligraphers. Among them, you will see the letter FU, meaning good luck, displayed upside down. This upside down, fu, is called Dao Fu in China. Dao is a word for upside down. Sounds nearly identical to a Chinese letter meaning arrive. Therefore, Dao Fu signifies a wish for good luck to descend upon a dwelling. At the lower right, buildings are being torn down. Recently in China, modernization progresses rapidly and the style of lifestyle is changing. They are pulling down old buildings to accomplish a new city planning. Scene 7. A site where an outdoor market is and houses are pulled down continues. At the upper right, there are people making large coal briquettes called yeon-tan. They put coal dust into molds to make compact lumps, and then drill holes into their tops. When I visited China, I often came across such a scene on the street. At the lower right, you will see a plain wall, which seems to be useless, between the houses. This is a firewall called udatsu in Japanese, and it also serves as a decoration. In Japan, when a person cannot rise in the world, we say, the guy cannot put up udatsu, meaning he is not successful enough to have his own house. However, as you know, prices are high these days, and it is not easy to have one's own dwelling. At the lower middle, boys are playing buck-buck. In Japan, the same kind of game used to be popular, but it is now forbidden in most of the schools because it is often causes injuries. Scene 8. This illustration copies the most famous scene in Along the River by Zhang Zeduan. In the original scroll, there is a great wooden arch bridge, both sides of which are crowded with shops. However, one boat comes nearer with no consideration for the bridge. People are calling, "Turn back," to the crew, and in a flurry, try to avoid the boat crashing into the bridge. This is such an amusing scene. In my illustration, referring to the commentaries, the detailed book on Along the River edited by Hiroshi Ihana, I changed the bridge to be under construction. I hope my version will show you the structure of the arch bridge. The main course of the Yellow River has changed much, and it now flows differently than the time when Along the River was painted. However, in Kaifeng, there is a theme park where the old town, including the bridge, is restored. The red seal in this scene contains Chinese characters that state, "Entering the shrine of Zhang Zeduan," which is mentioned in the afterword of this book. Scene 9. In this illustration, you will see a stage of Peking opera, where one of the chief attractions, a Monkey King, is performed. While Peking opera is very popular in China, it is so large a country that they have another classic theater called Kun Q opera. I have watched Kun Q opera once in Beijing. Of course, I didn't know the difference between the two operas, but people in Beijing also seemed to have no idea what the difference or what the performers were saying because the captions were given on stage. At the upper right, children are playing table tennis. The table is divided not by a net, but by bricks arranged in a line. This seems to me a good idea because bricks are hard enough not to be damaged easily. Shaoxing is where a great Chinese writer, Lu Xun, was born. The building I painted at the upper left is Xing Hang Inn. It appears in Lu's novel, so I painted it as it had been when I visited Shaoxing 30 years ago. The inn has been renovated, keeping its old style and become a popular tourist site of Shaoxing. The house where Lu Zhang was born is near here and now serves as a memorial hall. Scene 10. This is an elementary school. When the day's closed classes end, the front gate is crowded with families who come to pick up their children. You might think this is because China is keeping what is called the one-child policy and takes special care of children. But in Europe, families come to pick up their children after school too. In the USA, picking up and dropping off children by bus is common when school is a long way from the children's houses. At the lower right, a man is carrying Yino Tan on a cart. Scene 11. Here is a scene near Guilin. The ground is limestone. Erosion by rainwater over long periods of time caused the fantastically shaped rocks to appear here and there. The scene, containing a river, mountains, and paddylands at the same time, is quite rare, and also an impressive demonstration of the workings of nature. Guilin had been an out-of-the-way place for a long time. But since China's liberation, lots of people have come to visit China from all over the world, and the sight of these strange rocks has become very popular. At the lower left, you will see people are busy loading camels. This illustration copies one scene from along the river. Guilin is famous for its picturesque scenery in this region and has flourished as a trading center for agricultural products. The red seal in this scene says, "Entering the shrine of Zhang Zeduan," and the sign the man is carrying on his back says, "Along the river during the Qingming Festival," in Chinese characters. Scene 12. The model of this illustration is a waterside town called Wuzhen, which is wonderful tourist spot preserving the atmosphere of its old days. There, tourist boats will be seen going up and down the canals. Depicted the lower middle is such a boat. Wuzhen is also famous for its native indigo dye. At the top of the picture is a funeral procession. You will see a group of women behind weeping dramatically. They are mourners who, according to Chinese ancient custom, play a role of crying to show grief to honor the deceased. Scene 13. The New Year in China is a lunar one according to the old calendar, and different from that in Japan. I heard that a gala of the New Year doesn't end in one day, but continues several days, during which fireworks and firecrackers are set off, and lion dance and dragon dance are performed. It seems to be a grand celebration, although I've only watched on TV or film. I once saw a long parade of the Chinese New Year. Lots of people with flags and in fancy costumes from each region of the town were joining and playing musical instruments like pipes and drums. It was such an intriguing sight, I kept watching without being bored. In the actual event, the dragon never got tangled, as it is depicted in this illustration. Scene 14. China is such a large country that some areas are autonomous regions of ethnic minorities. Each minority group has its colorful folk costumes and is preserving its own traditions and language. Some of them have their own set of letters, unlike Chinese letters. Depicted in this illustration is a wedding ceremony of that kind of ethnic minority. All the villagers are celebrating the wedding. Scene 15. In the suburbs of Xi'an, there is a tomb of Qingming Festival, who is protected by an army of terracotta sculptures. The Terracotta Army is said to be the biggest discovery of the 20th century. It is now protected from wind and rain and kept in repair at a museum so that tourists can visit safely. However, when I visited the mausoleum for the first time, it was still under evacuation and had not been covered with roofs. These sculptures are earthenware made of very hard baked clay. The number of the army is so large, you might think that you were simultaneously from the same mold, but it is not so. Facial expressions of the sculptures are different individually. The sculptures are earthenware made from very hard baked clay. The number of the army is so large, you might think they were made simultaneously from the same mold, but it is not so. Facial expressions of the sculptures are different individually. Not only men, but also horses are made lifelike. The artistry of these sculptures should be admired. I was impressed by the sight of such an army arranged in an orderly way. It is a matter, of course, that the Terracotta Army is on the World Heritage List. I painted this illustration, reconstructing the scene when the Terracotta Army was discovered. People are excavating the site and lining up sculptures in rows. Scene 16. Going upstream, we finally reach a dam. In Chinese, a dam is called a garage of water. I think the name fits. Scene 17. The Great Wall of China is an enormous structure, but it doesn't stretch endlessly. The westernmost point is Jianyuguan, which used to be a barrier. A certain Chinese encyclopedia says that Yangguang, located to the west of Jianyuguan, is the western end of the Great Wall. The Great Wall gradually descends and finally fades away as if it crawls into a sandy ground. To the contrary, its eastern end is Shanhaiguan. The Great Wall, which has a length of about 240 kilometers, is the largest architectural structure on the earth. It is on the World Heritage List. Such a huge structure was not constructed at once, but has become what it is bit by bit after several restorations. Scene 18. The route that starts from Xi'an and leads to Rome is called the Silk Road. Along the way, there is an ancient city, Dunhuang. The city is accessible by railway, too. Dunhuang is famous for the Mogao Caves. The caves are dug into the side of a cliff, and each contains Buddha statues in various sizes. Near the caves, there is a series of dunes called Ming She Shan. This is also a popular tourist site. The Silk Road is also a way to caravans, which is formed by linking interspersed oases. Thus, pictures of them are depicted in this illustration too. Scene 19. Illustrated here are the Loesis Plateau, high plains of silty sediment deposited by wind. The sediment was originally carried by winds from dry inland areas such as Mongolia and Taklamakan Desert, and has accumulated over immeasurable ages. The plateau is a vast land of dust with no trees or grass growing. Because of the absence of grass, the ground easily gets eroded by rain and deep valleys are formed. The Yellow River is always muddy with dirt poured from the land. Dust blown out from the plateau is called yellow Asian dust. It reaches even Japan, carried far by seasonal winds. Farmers there industriously till the land and plant wheat and corn. I have once visited there after it rained. The soil got muddy, and it was kind of hard to wipe off my shoes. Located in one corner of the plateau are the Wuzhang Plains, which is the setting of the famous Chinese historical text, The Records of the Three Kingdoms, and Yan'an, where Mao Zedong set up a base camp. In an event of bullfighting, lots of people came out from wherever they live. Scene 20. The plateau is illustrated again to express its vastness. People are living their lives even in this kind of land, which gets muddy on rainy days and makes you keep your eyes shut because of the swirling dust on sunny days. Scene 21. The Yellow Plateau is one of the crucial problems China is facing. Desertification is, as it were, the course of nature, and the only way to prevent it is to plant trees. However, planting trees on the land is not enough. Water for the trees must be secured. A battle against nature is a serious matter. Volunteers come constantly from Japan and other countries as well as China and join this tree planting campaign. They are working in order to fulfill the worldwide desire to stop desertification rather than just the practical matter of preventing the yellow dust from flying to Japan.